The sun hung low over the Montana territory, casting long shadows across the weathered planks of the old ranch house. Sarah pressed her back against the rough wooden wall, feeling each splinter through her torn green dress. Blood had dried in dark patches across the fabric, and every breath sent sharp pains through her ribs. She had been running for 3 days now. The sound of hoofbeats on the dusty road made her freeze. Through the gap between the boards, she could see a lone rider approaching, a man in a gray hat, sitting tall in his saddle, moving with the easy confidence of someone who belonged to this harsh land. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to make herself smaller. Everyone in these parts knew about her now. Everyone had heard what she had done, what they said she had done. The rider stopped just 20 feet away from where she hid. "Ma'am," came a deep voice, gentle but firm. "I can see you there, behind the old Murphy place. You hurt." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She had been so careful, so quiet. How had he spotted her? "I'm not going to harm you," the man continued, dismounting slowly. His boots hit the ground with soft thuds. "Name's Thomas Wade. I own the spread about 2 miles north of here." Thomas Wade. Sarah had heard that name whispered in town. The lonely rancher who kept to himself. Some folks said he was strange, living out there all alone with just his cattle and his thoughts. Others said he was dangerous, that he had his own dark secrets, but his voice sounded kind. "Please," Sarah whispered, finally finding her voice. "No more pain. My ribs are already broken." The words came out, cracked and desperate. I can't run anymore." Thomas moved closer, his footsteps careful and measured. When he rounded the corner of the building, Sarah got her first clear look at him. He was older than she had expected, maybe 40, with weather-beaten skin and eyes the color of storm clouds. A neat mustache framed his mouth, and there was something in his expression that surprised her. Concern, not judgment, not anger, just genuine concern. "Those look like fresh wounds," he said quietly, studying the blood on her dress. "And older ones too. Someone's been hurting you, regular-like." Sarah nodded, unable to speak. Tears had started flowing down her cheeks, cutting clean tracks through the dirt and dust. "You're that woman from town, aren't you?" Thomas asked. "The one they're all talking about." "Sarah Mitchell." Sarah's body tensed, ready to run again despite the agony in her ribs. This was it. He would turn her in now. Collect whatever reward they were offering, or worse, he would finish what her husband had started. But Thomas surprised her. "Don't matter to me what they're saying," he said simply. "What matters is you're hurt and you need help. My ranch isn't fancy, but it's got clean beds and hot food, and nobody bothers anybody out there." "You don't understand," Sarah managed. "They're saying I killed him, my husband. They're saying I murdered James Mitchell in cold blood." Thomas was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. The late afternoon light caught the bruises around her eyes, the swelling along her jaw, the way she held her left arm protectively across her ribs. "Did you?" he asked finally. Sarah looked up at him, startled by the directness of the question. Most people had already made up their minds one way or another. She started, then stopped. "It was self-defense. He was going to kill me. This time, I could see it in his eyes. He'd beaten me before, but this time was different." Thomas nodded slowly. "I believe you." Those 3 simple words hit Sarah harder than any fist ever had. When was the last time anyone had believed her about anything? When was the last time anyone had looked at her with something other than pity or suspicion? "The law doesn't see it that way," she said. "Sheriff Hawkins was James's drinking partner. Half the town council owed my husband money. They want me dead or dancing at the end of a rope. Then it's a good thing my ranch is outside their jurisdiction," Thomas said. He stepped closer and offered his hand. "Come on, let's get you cleaned up and fed. Then you can decide what comes next." Sarah stared at his outstretched hand. Calloused from honest work, steady and strong, she had forgotten what it felt like to have someone offer help without expecting something terrible in return. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you risk everything for someone you don't even know?" Thomas was quiet for so long that Sarah thought he might not answer. Finally he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because 15 years ago, someone helped me when I needed it most. When everyone else in the world had given up on me. And because, double quotes, he paused, looking out toward the horizon. Because I know what it's like to be alone with nowhere to go." Sarah took his hand. The ride to Thomas's ranch passed in comfortable silence. Sarah rode behind him on his horse, her arms wrapped carefully around his waist to keep from falling. Every bump in the road sent fresh pain through her ribs, but for the first time in months, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. The Wade Ranch was modest but well maintained. A simple 2-story house, painted white, with a wide porch that wrapped around 3 sides, corrals and outbuildings spread out behind it, and cattle dotted the green pastures that stretched toward the mountains. "It's beautiful," Sarah said, as Thomas helped her down from the horse. "It's peaceful," he replied. "That's what matters most." Inside, the house was clean and spare but comfortable. Thomas led her to a room on the ground floor, with windows that looked out toward the pastures. This was going to be, ... He started, then stopped himself. This is the guest room. There's a wash basin and clean clothes in the dresser. Take all the time you need. After he left, Sarah sank into the chair by the window and let herself really cry for the first time in years. Not the silent tears of pain and fear she had grown used to, but deep, cleansing sobs that seemed to wash away months of terror and desperation. When she finally emerged, washed and wearing a simple blue dress that fit her reasonably well, she found Thomas in the kitchen preparing dinner. The smell of beef stew and fresh bread filled the air. "Feel better?" he asked, not turning around from the stove. "Yes, thank you." Sarah sat down at the wooden table. "Thomas, what were you going to say before? About that room?" Thomas stirred the stew slowly. "My wife died 3 years ago. Influenza. We had been planning to use that room as a nursery." He glanced over at her. Seemed fitting that someone should finally get some good use out of it. They ate dinner as the sun set completely, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Thomas told her about his cattle, about the harsh winter they had survived, about his plans to expand the herd next spring. Sarah found herself talking about her life before James, about the books she used to read, the garden she had once tended. For a few hours, they were just two people sharing a meal and conversation. Not a fugitive and her rescuer. Not a lonely rancher and a desperate woman. Just two human beings who had found each other in the vast emptiness of the frontier. "What happens now?" Sarah asked as Thomas walked her back to her room. "Now you heal," he said simply. "Your ribs, your spirit, whatever else needs mending. And when you're ready, we figure out the rest. The whole territory will be looking for me soon. I can't stay here forever. I can't put you in that kind of danger." Thomas stopped at her doorway and looked at her with those steady gray eyes. "Sarah, I've been alone on this land for 3 years. Before that, I was alone in ways that had nothing to do with my wife being alive or dead. For the first time in longer than I can remember, this house feels like a home again." He paused. Maybe we both needed saving. As Sarah lay in the comfortable bed that night, listening to the gentle sounds of the ranch settling around her, she realized something had changed. The fear that had been her constant companion for so long had finally begun to fade. Outside her window, she could see Thomas sitting on the porch, keeping watch over his land and his unexpected guest, protecting what was his. And maybe, just maybe, she belonged to this place now too. The stars shone bright over Montana, and for the first time in years, Sarah Mitchell fell asleep without fear. In the morning, there would be decisions to make and challenges to face, but tonight, she was safe. Tonight, she was home. Sometimes salvation came in the most unexpected forms. Sometimes it wore a gray hat and offered clean beds and hot food. Two strangers. Sometimes it was found in the kindness of someone who understood what it meant to be alone. And sometimes, healing began with 3 simple words. "I believe you."